Welcome back to SoCo Chat, a podcast where we talk with county leaders, discuss the latest news, and share all things concerning our beautiful corner of California known as Sonoma County. I'm your host once again, Paul Gullickson, Communications for the County of Sonoma, and we want to thank you for joining us. This is the third in our special four-part series this month on wildfire prevention and preparedness. The goal of our SoCo Ready series is to arm you with information and resources you need to be ready for this year's fire season, which in many ways has already begun. In our first segment, we gave an overview of projections for this year's fire risks. In segment 2, we discussed what the county has done and is doing through vegetation management to lessen the risk of wildfires in our open space and wildlands areas and roadsides. Today, our focus is on how you can best prepare your home, including how to manage your landscaping, create defensible space, and take other steps to protect your residents if and when a fire comes your way. Joining us today is Caerleon Saffard, Program Manager for Permit Sonoma's FEMA Grants Program, and we're eager to talk to her. But before we get to our interview, I want to start with our trivia question, as always, and here it is. In terms of acreage burned, what are the acreage burned each year? What are the top 3 states in the nation most vulnerable to wildfire? You don't need to give us a ranking, just give us the top 3 states if you know. Call us at 565-2242 or email us at publicaffairs, one word, at sonoma-county.org. And if you're correct, you'll have a chance to win one of our SoCo Chat mugs. And this week we're offering special, in addition to our mug, we're offering your pick of some of these emergency supplies that we have this week. We have first aid kits, we have the NOAA radios, we have a number of things from which you can choose. So call us with your answer as soon as you can. So with that, let us start our discussion. Welcome, Caerleon.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me this morning.
Well, it's great. It is great to have you. We really appreciate it. This is an important subject, and we appreciate. We're gonna dive into a lot of the stuff that you deal with on a daily basis, but we really only talk about when fire season comes upon us. I fear, and so we see it in the news right now. We already had experiencing some wildfires, and it's a good time to talk about it. First off, though, would you describe your position and what you do for the county?
Yeah. I currently work for Permit Sonoma in the Fire Prevention Division, where my primary responsibility is in wildfire outreach, education, and risk reduction. So I do a lot of talking about wildfire, helping people understand what to do and how to do it, and provide some programs that can help people deal with those wildfire issues that everybody's having.
Well, I know a big thing that you're involved in is home hardening. Would you explain? We hear that term a lot, but would you explain what that entails and give us a definition?
Oh, I'm so glad that that's the first up question, Paul, because that really, in my opinion, is the most important thing that people can do to help keep their house from catching on fire during a wildland fire event. Taking care of vegetation around the home is also important, but what starts well over 80, almost 90% of wildfires, it's not the giant wall of flame coming through the mountains and exploding everything in its path. What it is things the size of a pea. Embers, which are blowing in from other burning objects, buildings, plants, forests. If there is a receptive fuel bed for those little tiny burning objects, then you can have a very small fire that starts. It can be just starting and smoldering while the fire engines are still on scene. Are you lucky enough to have some on scene? But as time goes by, that small smoldering fire can grow to big enough to catch the whole house on fire.
Yeah, especially if we have some of the winds coming through that we've experienced, right?
And winds and wildfire go together every time.
Yeah.
It's a given.
Yeah.
So understanding and fixing the vulnerable spots on and near your home that are going to accept an ember and give it fuel to burn is, I think, the most important thing to do if what you want to do is not have your house burned down.
And we want to emphasize that I think sometimes there's a perception that this is only a concern for people who live in remote areas, heavily wooded areas, but that's not the case, right?
Oh, not at all. In some ways, I think our most vulnerable communities are ones where the homes are close together.
Mm.
And we definitely have seen that in the past, in
Mhm.
2017, certainly, where entire communities burned up from
Mhm.
house to house to house. We call those urban conflagration fires.
Mhm.
And keeping that first house from igniting is
Mhm.
absolutely critical. And the best way to do that is to do the stuff we were just talking about, which is address those near home and on home vulnerabilities.
Mhm. Yeah. And it's also important to address those who feel, well, there's misperceptions out there that, well, if a wildfire comes through, there's nothing I can do anyway. So, it's just fate. But there are things that people can do to protect your home in the event that there is a wildfire coming through our area.
There absolutely are. And I completely understand why people perceive that.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing I can do. I'm just a victim.
Yeah.
It's really looked like that in our county for
Yeah.
the last several years. And so it's not an illogical perception on the part of folks out there.
Yeah.
However, it's really not true. There are a lot of things you can do, even when your home is in a particularly vulnerable spot.
Yeah.
And it's so often it's the little things. Usually if I'm out doing a property consultation or assessment, the thing that scares me the most are just the stuff that people have around their house.
Yeah. Sometimes that's the worst thing, right?
Where do you keep your garbage cans?
Yeah.
Oh, I have this recycling bin under my eave, next to my former wood pile, right next to my kitchen door, because it's practical there.
Yeah.
So the day the fire comes and you ate 3 pizzas last week, and so the recycle bin lid is wide open with the pizza lid sticking out of the top, that is a highly receptive fuel bed for any embers that are going to blow in there. So you don't want to leave flammable items like your recycling bins, like your boxes of things right next to the house. That's one of the most important things that you can do, is really start looking at what is called the 0 to 5 foot non-combustible zone,
Yeah.
or zone 0. That will be coming to defensible space regulations near you in the recent future through Public Resource Code 4291. So those in the county who live in the state responsibility areas will actually someday be required to maintain that 0 to 5 foot non-combustible zone.
Yeah.
And that basically means that you've removed all of the highly flammable plant species, anything combustible, anything made of wood, anything in a box, anything like a garbage can, as we mentioned before.
Keep it away from.
Keep those away from the house,
Yeah.
because think back to the ember discussion, right?
Right.
You're going to get something blowing onto those things that
Yeah.
are sitting by the house that you didn't think anything about that morning.
Yeah.
That ember can blow in there, slowly build to lead to a home ignition, sometimes days after the fire has passed through.
Yeah.
That is an easy fix for folks.
Well, what are some of the other simple, in terms of home, all this is home hardening itself. So what are some of those simple things that people can do? I mean, obviously it's pretty critical that you're pointing out the importance of keeping stuff away from the house itself, and sometimes maybe even fencing. But what other things can people do?
Thanks for bringing up those fences, because they are increasingly understood by the science. You know, it's one of the interesting things about being in my business at this time is that when I started doing this many, many years ago, there wasn't a whole lot of science about exactly how do buildings ignite during wildfire events. We just didn't have the data and nobody was focusing on it.
Mhm.
Now we do. And those fences have proven to be, it's basically a wick where the fire can get going on the fence. And if
that's
your
such a good
wooden
point.
fence is
Yeah.
attached to your wooden house,
Yeah.
it's going to lead it straight to the house. So backing that fence off, putting a non-combustible element in for 5 feet where it attaches to your house is not that difficult to fix. So that's a really important one. Getting all of those highly combustible plants away from the house walls. Really pay attention to your stuff. Since we can only regulate defensible space, which is about plants, we have sort of trained the public to think of this as a plant problem, right? This is a forest problem. It's a plant problem. And I really look at it a lot as a stuff problem. The most vulnerable thing on your property is probably your home.
Yeah.
So getting after all of the small non-combustible items that are right around your house is really one of the most important things you can do. Start with 5 feet, go out to 10 feet, go out to 30 feet, get that really clean, right?
Yeah. And look at the combustible things. You mentioned, we have wood piles that are maybe a wood shed, maybe large wood planters or right up against the home, things like that could be really a risky thing to have around.
Think about embers, a pile of embers. And if you had a bucket of those and you dumped them on that thing, would it catch it on fire? That's what you want to think about as you're walking around looking at your home.
Yeah.
And if you think the answer is yes, then move it or change it.
Yeah.
Don't have that natural fiber doormat right up against your wooden door. Get a non-combustible model. So those are little things in that 0 to 5 area.
Yeah.
Some of the other things that are really important on homes themselves are the vents. So the code for vents in the years past used to require a 1/4-inch mesh. And that 1/4-inch mesh is really good for airflow, which is super important to keep your house from getting wet inside. But if you think about a grain of rice, which is a typical ember size, you're not going to keep a grain of rice from falling through a 1/4-inch mesh. A lot of homes in Sonoma County were built with that 1/4-inch mesh, which can allow the embers to blow into both the crawl space and even more importantly, up into the attic of the building, where typically we store a lot of combustible stuff. So you can either cover your vents with 1/8 inch or smaller screening, or you can get a Wildland Urban Interface compliant vent product to retrofit all those vents. That's one of the most important things to do.
That's a really good subject because we often think about embers coming through the air, but embers also come along the ground. And we saw that happen a great deal in the Tubbs fire. It was being swept across streets like lava. And it can go under your house just as easily as it can go through the eaves, like you mentioned. So it's important to look at those vents high and low, right?
Absolutely. Look at all those vents. Pay special attention to the way the wind comes when it's a bad fire day. And you know about that. Pay attention to where the wind is hitting your house.
Now, let's back up.
You can get embers piling up in that windward direction.
Absolutely. Let's back up to the combustible plants. How can people find out information about whether the plants they have are combustible or not, or how to plant non-combustible plants?
Okay, that's a really easy answer. All plants are combustible.
Okay, well.
Really, with plants, there are some that are worse than others for sure.
Like manzanita.
But really, you need to think about all plants are combustible. And it's really a question of how well is that plant and the area around it maintained? Is it pruned back so that it doesn't have any dead growth in it? Have leaves fallen and have piled up all around the base of the plant? Is it irrigated? Anything in that 5-foot zone must be irrigated. Succulents, things like that, are clearly less
at risk
than your basic
juniper
bush, which I would not have around my home.
Those
sure.
are pretty bad. Yeah.
Anything that one of the signs of badness in a plant is it will typically have a papery bark, and if you crush the leaves and rub them between your fingers, you're going to get an odor. That means that there's lots of volatile oils in the plant itself, and the papery bark usually indicates also those highly ignitable species like rosemary, the juniper, the conifer family, all those guys.
So what do you encourage people to do instead of thinking in terms of plants for their yards, or how do you help them?
Within 5 feet of the house, the best thing to do, ideally, you have 5 feet of hardscape.
Okay.
So that can be rocks, that can be poured cement, that can be degraded granite, it can be whatever it is, some
Pavers,
kind of a non-combustible wood surface.
Particularly that first 5 feet.
For that first 5 feet. One of the big problems we have in this county is wooden mulch, right? People take chips and they distribute them to keep the weeds down, and they'll put those chip mulches straight up to the structure. You really need to get all of that vulnerable mulch material back away from the structure.
Mm-hmm.
So that non-combustible surface is really, really important.
And there's some mulch that's much more volatile than other mulches, right? But you're saying really any of them.
I wouldn't have any of it within 5 feet of my
Okay.
house.
All right. That's good. That's good
Period.
advice.
So no combustible mulch within 5 feet of the house. And you can, some composts are pretty good if they don't have too much wood matter in them. You can use compost.
Okay.
But you're really, the best case scenario is just make your life easy by making that a permanent surface that the weeds can't grow through.
I see. Okay. Well, in addition to the home hardening, and I know there's a lot more we can go here, and we're going to talk more about this, but another term we often hear is creating defensible space. And so is that really what we're talking about here as well? And what advice do you give homeowners about that?
Absolutely. Defensible space is half the story. The other half is the structure hardening, but the defensible space is also critically important and required by law. So both our local responsibility areas in the county and our state responsibility areas in the county have rules which regulate how much vegetation that you have in the zones around your house. The zones are typically 0 to 30 feet and 30 to 100 feet. And you can treat differently in those two zones. So obviously your 0 to 5, do what we've been talking about. From 5 feet to 30 feet, what you want to do is think of lean, clean, and green. And the other thing that you really want to think about is separating trees and shrubs so that the fire can't get into one tree or one shrub especially and march straight across horizontally across the landscape straight up to
like
the
dominoes.
house. So break the continuity.
Yeah.
So if that bush catches on fire, it's not going to catch the next bush on fire and the next bush on fire.
Yeah.
The more of a slope you're on, the more separation you need between those plants. Vertical continuity is when you have bushes that are growing under trees. It's really bad if the fire gets up into the treetops. So if you really are careful to make sure that there aren't any bushes under the trees that can catch the trees on fire. So you need to think of a bush in a bad day can produce roughly twice or more the flame height of the bush itself.
Oh, right.
So if you have a 3-foot tall bush under a tree, you could have flames 6 feet or higher.
Yeah.
So you need to make sure that you've limbed up those trees, removed the brushy material that might impact the tree wherever it is. So make sure and take care of both the vertical continuity, so don't let it burn up into the treetops, and don't let it jump from bush to bush to bush straight up to your house.
So defensible space is not just creating the space around your home, but creating space between the things that are out around your home, like bushes and trees. And
that's
and not,
especially within that 0 to 30 foot zone. You want to be pretty careful. And that should be lean, clean
and green. I like that. Lean, clean, and green.
And to take a line from Monty Python, bring out your dad.
Bring out your dad. I like that. Caerleon, would you tell us what the SoCo Adapts program is all about?
SoCo Adapts is post-2017. There were all of a sudden a lot of grant funds available from FEMA for disaster recovery and all kinds of stuff. And we at Permit Sonoma jumped in and wrote and got several grants to help residents in Sonoma County in selected areas create their defensible space and do some structure hardening. The Wildfire Adapted Sonoma County has 14 project areas throughout the county. In those areas, we've done consultations for defensible space, and we're offering a few remaining structure hardening assessments for some of those areas. And from those assessments, people that can then apply for during phase 2 of our grant, which will be 25 or 26, can apply for a $10,000 rebate that they can apply to doing top-level priority projects as identified in the assessments. So that's the Wildfire Adapted program. We also have the Wildfire Resilient Sonoma County program, which is just taking off. That has 3 very large project areas in the Lower Russian River, Mark West Wickiup area,
Okay.
and in Pengrove.
Okay.
And we'll be doing a lot of extensive outreach in those areas and doing the same kind of stuff, assessments followed by rebates. In addition, the Wildfire Resilient Sonoma County project also includes funds to do wildland fuel breaks to help slow or stop the advance of fire into those communities. So that's a really exciting project as well.
Well, that's great. So tell us, how can people find out more about the SoCo Adapts program?
The best place to start is on our website at socoadapts.org. You can also contact us on the phone at 707-565-8575.
Okay.
Or you can email wildfireadapted@sonoma-county.org.
Okay.
But try the website first, socoadapts.org.
Okay. And the phone number again, give that again.
565-8575.
8575, 565-8575, or wildfireadapts@sonoma-county.org.
Correct.
Okay. Another program to talk about creating defensible spaces. Several years ago, the county launched a public chipper program, which has been really a success by all accounts. And can you describe this program and tell a little bit about people where they can find out more about that as well?
Yeah, the chipper program is an awesome service that the county's been providing to the residents of the county for, going on 10, 15 years now, I think.
Okay.
What it is if you cut it and pile it, the county will send a chipper and crew out to chip it up for free.
Okay.
Those chips do stay on the property, so you'll need to dispose of them. But it's an awesome way for you to get rid of any woody debris that you're creating while you're doing your defensible space.
Right. And
the project is intended to deal with materials that are created for defensible space. So it's not for your back 40, but it is for anything within 100 feet of your home.
Yeah. And again, it's not meant for people with just huge 40-acre homes, but really there are many of us who probably have enough material in our area that would qualify for this, right?
You can make a big pile pretty quick if
Yeah.
you're paying attention to doing that fuel separation that we were talking about earlier. So all you got to do is, the easiest way to do it, honestly, is just to Google Sonoma County Chipper, or you can go to permitsonoma.org/chipper program, and you'll see everything you need to know about what your pile needs to look like, what you need to do before the chipper comes, and how to sign up for the program. This is a busy time of year for the chipper program, but there are chipping opportunities available.
Yeah.
Can't encourage you enough to make use of that awesome free service.
Yeah, it's great. And I know they started a little bit early this year. It's kind of a seasonal program, but they started, I think, in March or sometime. And
yeah, we typically take a month-long hiatus to maintain our equipment and take care of business.
And then get back out there.
And then we're back out there.
Well, Caerleon, over the past 20 years or so, you have been active in wildfire education and as well as risk reduction. You've been wearing multiple hats in the nonprofit and public sectors. Can you share a little bit about those other organizations and how your work overlaps with your county role?
Oh, absolutely. And shout out to Fire Safe Sonoma, where I worked for many, many years before I was involved full-time administering the FEMA grants that we're working on now.
Okay.
Fire Safe Sonoma is your countywide fire safe council, and they're a great source for information, for figuring out how to gather support in your community to get everybody
on board.
involved in this, because wildfire risk reduction, it's a community effort. It's not an individual effort.
Right.
Everybody in your neighborhood has to do this all at the same time.
Right.
And Fire Safe Sonoma is really actively involved in helping people create what are called fire-wise communities, which is a really great program that they are in charge of implementing in Sonoma County. Can even help with your insurance rates in some cases.
Absolutely. We hear more of that, and there's growing concern about insurance rates. Well, so how can people find out more about Fire Safe Sonoma?
FireSafeSonoma.org.
Okay.
Easy enough. Also, check around with your neighbors. Is there a local COPE group or a CERT team? Or, since 2017, so many wonderful organizations have popped up. to help coalesce preparedness in communities, that it's really a really different world than it used to be, and that's pretty exciting.
Yeah. Well, that is exciting. What do you like most about your job? We always like to ask this question, so I just want to hear about it from you. What do you like most about your job?
You know, I'm very passionate about wanting to expose and have people understand that reducing the risk of home ignition is something that they can do, and that we all should do. I started in this world as a volunteer fire department member in my local community, and I've morphed out and done all kinds of stuff in support of this work over the years. The hopelessness that a lot of us feel that we're just flotsam on the sea of disaster to come. Things are grim in wildfire world. It doesn't look like this problem is going to get any better in the next decades. And we all need to be ready for that, not only to protect our stuff and our properties, but also for the environment. The environmental costs of home replacement are extraordinary. And we do have it within our means to greatly reduce the potential for home ignition. And that is such an important thing. And one of the most important pieces of that, I think, that I have to mention is that it's not easy. Some of this stuff is expensive. It's physically
takes work,
hard work. But knock off the bits you can knock off in the time you have to do it. I get up at 5 a.m. so I can weed eat it for an hour before I sit down at the computer. And I have so much weed eating to do that sometimes it feels like a drop in the bucket. But then I can walk out there and I can go, oh, gosh, I have gotten something done. I've been hardening my home for many, many years.
There's always more we can do.
There is more than we can do. Get that 0 to 5 taken care of. That is doable.
Well, I bet it's very gratifying when the light goes on and people realize, yes, there are things I can do, and they get it done. And I applaud you for your work in that area. So thank you. And thank you for being with us today. This is an important conversation, and we really appreciate you shedding light for all of us on this. So, and as a thank you, we'd like to give you one of our SoCo Chat podcast mugs.
So excited.
Yes. And we'd like to give our listeners a chance to win one of our mugs as well. As always, if you can answer our trivia question, not only you have a chance to win our mug, but you'll also have your pick of many of our emergency supplies we're giving out as part of our special 4-part series, Sonoma Ready. And our question this week is this: in terms of average acreage burned, what are the top 3 states in the nation most vulnerable to wildfire? You do not have to rank them. Just give us those top 3 states. If you have the answer, call us at 707-565-2242 or email us at publicaffairs, one word, at sonoma-county.org. If you're correct, we'll get one of these gifts, and you'll have a chance at picking one of these others. Once again, the number is 565-2242. And if you have comments about this or any other segment or a suggestion for a topic for a future SoCo Chat segment, please email us at that same address, publicaffairs@sonoma-county.org. And thank you, and please continue to follow us on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, and, of course, YouTube. We'll see you next time. Caerleon, thank you very much.
Thank you.